Hello and welcome to Carelia Isaacs. In today's French class, we are going to take a look at some common grammatical mistakes we make in French. So buckle up and let's get today's wonderful class started. But before we kick off today's wonderful class, let's take a look at a very nice motivational quote. Today's motivational quote is: success is going from failure to failure without losing your enthusiasm. And this amazing motivational quote is from Winston Churchill. I really hope you were motivated by this motivational quote. Keep your girl motivated by hitting the subscribe button, and please do not forget to turn on the notification button as well. Alright, just as I mentioned earlier on, in today's video we are going to take a look at some common grammatical mistakes we do in French. Following are the various grammatical errors to avoid in French. 1. Transition of adjectives according to noun gender. 2. Avoid literal translations. 3. Using the right articles. 4. Article contractions. 5. The use of passé composé and imperfect. 6. When to stop conjugations. 7. The use of vous and tu. 8. The relationship between nouns and quantitative adjectives. 9. Positioning of adjectives in a sentence. And then 10. Le fait ami, which is false friends. Alright, at this juncture, let's take a look at the various mistakes one after the other. The first common mistake is how to transition adjectives according to the noun gender. Well, in English, adjectives remain the same no matter the gender of the noun, but this is totally different when it comes to French, because in French, adjectives are based on the gender of the noun. For example, let's take a look at the adjective kind in French. So in its masculine form, it is spelled Gentil, but in its feminine form, you simply add le. For example, elle est très gentille. Elle est très gentille, and this is she is kind. And you can also say that il est très gentil. Il est très gentil, and this is he is kind. The second common mistake is literal translations. See, it is not a fallacy at all when I say most English speakers are victims of this, because I was once a victim. Well, sometimes literal translations are correct. For example, saying small girl, you can say petite fille, and this is correct. But let's say you want to say good morning in French and you say bon matin. Well, that would be totally wrong, because the right way to say good morning in French is bonjour. Bonjour. Yes, in most cases, literal translations lead to errors. So please try your best to avoid literal translations. Moving on, let's take a look at the third common error in French, and this is using the right articles. In one of our previous videos, we discussed the articles in French, and if you've checked on that video, you would know that there are more articles in French than in English, and each article has a specific function. Anyway, If you always make mistake in French because you do not know the right time to use the right articles in French, you can always go and check on that video. I am actually going to leave a link to that video in the description box. But in this video, I am going to quickly brush through the articles in French with you. But just as I said previously, if you want a more detailed video, go and check it out in the description box. Alright people, these are the various articles in French with their grammatical functions. Un and in are both indefinite articles in French, which means a or an. But un is used for masculine nouns, whereas une is used for feminine nouns. Also, un and une both form the plural de. Again, le and la are the definite articles in French, but le and la means de. Also, la is used for feminine nouns, whereas le is used for masculine nouns. Again, both le and le have the plural le, which also mean de. Yes, these are the various articles in French with their grammatical functions. So I hope now you know that there are more articles in French than in English. Let's look at some examples. La maison est verte, and this is the house is green. Un garçon est beau, meaning the boy is handsome. Moving on, let's take a look at the fourth mistakes most people make in French. And this one is article contractions. Still on articles. You know, most articles are contracted to form other articles. And so you must know the article contractions so that you do not make certain grammatical errors in French. The following are the various article contractions in French. 1. De plus le, and this gives us du. 2. De plus le, and this gives us de. 3. A plus le, and this gives us o, singular. And then a plus le, and this gives us o, plural. There are only 3 articles that are not contracted in French, and they are de, la, and then a la. Let's take a look at some examples. And we have je vais au cinéma. Je vais au cinéma. And this is I am going to the cinema. So instead of using a le, you use o. Another example is je vais à la plage. Je vais à la plage. And this is I am going to the beach. Since Allah is not contracted, it is correct this way. Another common mistakes most people do in French is the use of passé composé and imperfect. Passé composé is used to describe a one-time event that happened in the past. For example, j'ai fait mes devoirs soit. J'ai fait mes devoirs soit. And this one is I did my homework last night. I did my homework last night. And now, imperfect. And this is what a person used to do over a period of time in the past. For example, je faisais mes devoirs tous les jours. Je faisais mes devoirs tous les jours. And this is translated as I was doing my homework every day. I was doing my homework every day. I hope now you can differentiate between passé composé and imperfect, and you would avoid any mistakes from that side. Alright, let's take a look at another very common mistakes most people do in French, and this is when to stop conjugation. You see, we do not always conjugate verbs because we see them in sentences. In some cases, verbs are left in their infinitive forms because of certain conditions that might be present in the sentence. The following are the conditions that prevent a verb from being conjugated. Whenever you see sans, de, a, or po before a verb, that verb is left in its infinitive form and it is not conjugated. Also, whenever you see a verb before another verb, the second verb is left in its infinitive form and it is also not conjugated. Let's take a look at some examples. J'aime jouer le football. And this is I like to play football. Il vient de manger son repas. And this is he just finished eating his meal. We also have il a beaucoup à faire. And this is he has a lot to do. Moving on, let's take a look at another very common mistakes most people make in French, and this is the use of vous and tu in French. Even though both vous and tu have the same meaning in French, which is they both mean you in French. Vous and tu have their own distinct functions in French. That is, tu is used for singular nouns, whereas vous is used for plural nouns. But in some cases, we can see that vous is used for singular nouns. This is because vous is used when the context is formal and tu is used when the context is informal. Vous is mostly used when referring to people in higher ranks like the president, your bosses, your father, your teacher, and so many others. But tu is used when referring to people in the same rank with you, like your friends and your classmates. For instance, je vous cite l'auteur pour savoir comment vous avez. Quant à moi, je vous bien. And this means I am writing this letter to you to know how you are doing. As for me, I am fine. Looking at this sentence, you can easily say that the person is referring to another person in a higher rank than him or her. Now let's take a look at the second sentence, and this is tu es ami, tu es ami, and this means you are my friend, you are my friend. Now let's take a look at this sentence. You can easily say that the speaker is referring to a person in the same rank with him or her. Another very common mistake most people make in French is the relationship between nouns and quantitative adjectives. Just as the name goes, quantitative adjectives are adjectives that are used to describe the quantity or amount of a noun. All quantitative adjectives in French follow one rule, which is not very common to most French learners, and this is all quantitative adjectives are followed by de. But in some contexts, the de is changed to the apostrophe. This happens when the noun following the de begins with a vowel like l'orange, l'école, l'élève. When this happens, the D is changed to the apostrophe. But most people tend to misuse this rule when the noun is plural. But according to the rule, the D is constant whether the noun is plural or singular. For example, it is wrong to say je m'occupe des oranges, but instead you must say je m'occupe d'oranges. And this means I have a lot of oranges. Yes, even though l'orange is plural, you do not use de. Instead, you must use de according to the rule. Now, another mistake you might be making but you do not know is positioning of adjectives. You see, the word order of sentences in English is so different from the word order of sentences in French. In English, the adjectives comes before the noun, but in French, the adjective comes after the noun. For example, in English, it is correct to say it is a white house, but in French, you say elle est maison blanche. But what makes most people confused is the exceptions. You see, there are some adjectives which do not follow this rule. Instead, they come before the nouns in French. Example of these adjectives are bon, good, petit, small, mauvais, bad, grand, big, joli, pretty. These adjectives comes before nouns instead of after the nouns. For example, you do not say c'est une fille jolie. Instead, you say c'est une jolie fille. And this means she's a pretty girl. Moving on, let's take a look at another common mistake which has its own funny name, and this is le feu ami. Le feu ami. Did you sense that sense of humor? Well, I did, because the English translation of this is false phrase. Do you get it now? Though this might sound very funny, it won't be that funny when you do this in your exams, because it is going to cost you your grades. Yes, this can lead to low grades in French. This is because le feu ami are words that look similar to English words and also sound similar to the English words but have completely different meaning in French. A very common example is the word actuellement. Actuellement. This word looks and sounds similar to the English word actual, but the real meaning of this word in French is currently. Currently. Another very common example is librairie. Librairie, which looks and sounds similar to the English word library, but this word means bookshop. So, when learning French, you must really take note of le feu ami, because when it happens to you, you would not be laughing when you see your grades. All too soon, this brings us to the end of today's wonderful class. But as you know, I cannot leave you without a task for today. And today's task is quite simple. Please make sure to give your girl a thumbs up, and also do not forget to subscribe to this channel to help your girl reach her golden target, 10k subscribers. And also, my YouTube community is really helping French learners like you and has on their eloquence in French. So what are you waiting for? Go and check it out now. Answer the questions, like, and please don't forget to drop a comment. I would really like to see you there. Until we meet again in another wonderful video, it is au revoir.